please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, back home on the Lal Street, it was a range-bound session. Nifty saw a sharp fall in the last 45 minutes of trade. The index closed below its 100-day moving average at 10,360 level. The Sensex also followed suit and ended with a 70-point cut. The Midcaps ended flat, while banks continue to underperform, breaching the 25,000 mark as far as the bank Nifty is concerned. But how the Q stacked up for today? Naveen joins us early this morning to tell us more. Good morning, Naveen. Over to you.
Good morning, Anisha. I'll begin with yesterday's trade. If you saw, we ended the day at below that 100-day moving average of around the 10,398. So what had happened is basically the PSU bank index, they were quite volatile. In fact, the overall bank index, PSU bank index recovered at the last end. But the triggers going ahead tomorrow will be the FNO expiry. In terms of the institutional flows in the cash market, the pattern seems to be followed clearly, given the fact that FIIs in the cash market, they sold close to 2,000 crore. On the other hand, DIIs were net buyers of around 1,450 crores. If you see for the whole of February, FIIs have sold close to 9,000 crore in the cash market. Meanwhile, DIIs, they bought in close to 7,800 crores in the cash market. Also, this has led to the Nifty. Nifty has also fallen by close to 6% from the beginning of February, that is February 1st, and is hovering around the 10,360 levels. If you see in terms of the lower lows that the Nifty has been making for the last 4 to 5 sessions, both the highs as well as the closing has been at the lower levels. So on 15th Feb, if you see, the high was at around the 10,618. In yesterday's trade, it was around that 10,430 mark. So that seems to be a tad bit of a negative. On the other hand, talking about the levels, remember, going ahead now in today's trade, that 100-day moving average will be one resistance that we'll be keenly watching at around that 10,398. After that, also, if you see the 10,400 call, that has added close to 4.5 lakh shares, and the premium over there is around 40 rupees, 30 rupees in fact. So around the 10,430 is something that we will be keenly watching once it breaks the 100-day moving average on the upside. On the downside, clearly 10,270 will be a level that we'll be watching, given the fact that 10,300 put, that has shed close to that has added close to 2 lakh shares with a premium of around 37 rupees. In terms of the global market, fairly positive cues. Down is Dow, although is down, but if you see CAC, DAX, Nikkei as well as Kospi, they have been up in trade. In fact, SGX Nifty is also indicating an opening about the 10,400 mark.
All right, Naveen, thanks a lot for that. You've spoken about the indices and the way the markets might pan out ahead of expiry. The stocks that you're watching out for in trade today would be what? Clearly, Eros is something that we'll be clearly watching, given the fact that Reliance Industries has invested almost 5% in the company. They are to set up, this is basically into Reliance's foray into producing new content. So that is one stock that we'll be clearly watching. The other one being Max India and Max Healthcare. Remember, Max India is planning to increase its stakes in the joint venture in their life healthcare business. On the other hand, Fortis Healthcare again will be in focus for the last maybe 5 to 6 sessions. That is one stock that investors have been clearly watching, given the news flow surrounding that one. Now what we understand is that the Fortis Holdings had reduced the stake in the company from 8.5% to almost 5.5%. Dilip Bilcon is again one stock that will be clearly that we will be watching, given the fact that there have been the lowest bidder for their Karnataka EPC contract, and the amount is not very significant. Nevertheless, around 400 crore is what they have got from NHAI. PNB, there have been a whole host of updates in terms of their ratings. A lot of revision has been done, and for a lot of their bonds there has been downgrades happening. On the other hand, Bank of India, another PSU bank that will be in focus, that the bank has got shareholders nod for raising up to 10,000 crore. On the other hand, Bank of Maharashtra also, ICRA has updated ratings on a whole host of their bonds. Wisman Forex, this is one company that we haven't been talking about much, but as per notification on to the exchanges, the company will be raising some funds. Post that, they will be demerging their power business. Back to you.
Okay, Naveen, thank you so much for that. But on that note, let's get in some market opinion from Nirmal Jain, the founder and chairman of the IIFL Group, on the road ahead for the Indian market and the sectors of the likes.
The theme of our conference is actually the main story that is happening in India, which is the rise of millennials. And that is what makes our country very different from all other large economies. Not only what is happening today, but for next 10 to 20 years, as investment destination. So the theme of our conference is the rise of millennials, which I think is the real story happening in India. It's a much bigger story than the scams and frauds that you hear about. I mean, they'll disappear in a day or two. For a $2.5 trillion economy, these are exaggerated. They are not something that will make or mar the country. This primarily impacts one public sector bank, and I don't think it's a systemic fraud or something which has any cascading impact. At least at this point in time, we don't see anything like that. So, it's something where, again, basically this reinforces urgent need to reform PSU banks, and if government wants to consider privatization in whichever form, they should do that. Affordable housing as a theme, this government has done quite a few reforms which are serious and far-reaching, and we are seeing that there's already a pickup in demand for affordable housing. When we look at India, which is, there are so many smaller towns where you can still buy a house at less than $50 per square feet, that is where the real growth is coming. And there are a number of tax incentives or reforms in land acquisition, and also the incentive scheme or the subsidy scheme, which has been very innovative and has been very successful. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where up to 12 lakh rupees, you can get around 15–20% of loan amount as a subsidy. And a typical, the first-time homeowner of a lower middle class or a lower or relatively lower economic section, then that is something which will drive growth.
Now, it's been almost a week after the 11,400 crore rupees scam, fraud, whatever you call it, at Punjab National Bank came to light. The finance minister now has broken his silence. Speaking at an event in Delhi, Arun Jaitley held the management of the bank, the auditors, as well as the regulator, RBI, responsible for the fraud allegedly perpetrated by Nirav Modi and his companies.
The first important question is with regard to the lack of ethics that a section of Indian business follows. And therefore, it is incumbent on us as a state, till the last legitimate capacity of the state, to really chase these people to the last possible conclusion to make sure that the country is not cheated. When authority is given to the managements, you are expected to utilize that authority effectively and in the right manner. And therefore, a question for the managements itself is, were they found lacking? And on the face of it, the answer seems to be, yes, they were. They were found also lacking in being able to check who amongst them were the delinquents itself. The third important question is, which is addressed to our friends in the profession, what are our auditors doing? There is also an important challenge where the supervisory agencies have now to introspect as to what are the additional mechanisms they have to put into place to make sure that stray cases don't become a pattern again. I say this because these kind of developments have a cost to the country and a cost to the taxpayer. It's a direct cost. And it has an indirect cost which impinges on development, which impinges upon the lending capacity of banks as an institution, and therefore it obviously impinges upon developmental finance.
Okay, so important statements coming from the finance minister asking the auditors and the supervisors to introspect and see if what this happens. But the other big development in this case is the statement from RBI. The banking regulator has said that it has been warning banks about SWIFT-related operational risks for at least 17 months. The statement says, and I quote, RBI had confidentially cautioned and alerted banks of possible misuse of SWIFT at least on 3 occasions since August 2016, advising them to implement the safeguards detailed in the RBI's communications for preempting such occurrences. Banks, however, have been at varying levels in implementation of such measures, end quote.
And the central bank goes on to add, I quote, in the wake of SWIFT-related fraud involving significant amount reported recently by the Punjab National Bank, the RBI has reiterated its confidential instructions and mandated the banks to implement within the stipulated deadlines the prescribed measures for strengthening the swift operating environment in banks, end quote. The Reserve Bank has also constituted an expert panel to look into factors leading to an increasing incidence of such frauds. In fact, what we'll do is take that point forward. We also spoke to H.R. Khan, the former Deputy Governor of the RBI, who points out the need for a robust, full-fledged integration and compensatory control for banks. He also says the RBI needs to have a proper dialogue with the auditors and the ICI. Listen in.
Some of the controls which were supposed to be in place were not probably in place, and when SWIFT was not integrated to CBS, there was all the more reasons to have very robust compensatory controls till such time it is integrated, and it should have been integrated in a time-bound manner. But it's a fact that in many banks, when they moved to a new system, for example, Finacle 10, many banks did face the problems while switching over to the new system. So possibly that could have led to this delay in integration. But in the meantime, pending full-fledged integration, compensatory control should have been robust. I think probably RBI will look into what went wrong in terms of implementation of its advisory.
And in the latest development in this scam, the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, has arrested 5 more people, including Vipul Ambani, the President Finance of Nirav Modi's Five-Star Diamond.